I'll make sure that my stream is good on the Facebooks. Test, test. Yep. Cool. We are live.
All right.
And if you guys can hear me, go ahead and let me know that the sound is on, so I definitely know. But perfect. Here we go. So, Brian, I am so excited to talk to you today because I know how important being an entrepreneur is, and how they say it is the loneliest thing in the world, and that's true. But I want to kind of go over why it is the loneliest road and the fact that it could kill you. So, Brian, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and kind of your backstory and all that fun stuff?
Hi, my name is Brian Forsyth, and 5 years ago, basically depression almost killed me, and that's kind of what I do. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been doing this entrepreneur gig for about 10 years. And I'm on this podcast today because entrepreneurism can literally kill you. Depression or not, it can also drive depression. The truth is I struggle with depression probably 25 years, and I didn't know. It was just something where I just kept pushing through, and it just became normal to push through the hopelessness and the all the different things that come with depression. And then one day, after basically not taking care of myself, having 4-hour, nights where I would come home after a day, working in the Navy, and then, I would have to crash out on the couch, for probably an hour, and then I'd wake up and do this entrepreneur thing, until like 1 o'clock in the morning, go to sleep, wake up at maybe 4:30, maybe 5, struggle off to work, and just do it like over and over and over again. And eventually, that cycle almost killed me.
Wow. I mean, for me, like, I wouldn't say that I'm in that same spot, but I go to bed, like, for instance, last night I couldn't sleep, and I ended up going to bed at like, I want to say 12 or 1, just rolling in bed back and forth. And then I woke up at 4 or 5, I think. And so I got the 4 hours sleep, kind of like you're saying. Do you think that sleep deprivation kind of led to that illness of yours, of depression, or do you feel that it was kind of rooted beforehand, or how do people discover that they might have depression? Because someone like you didn't know for the very, very long time, and then it kind of crept up and you thought that was a normal thing. So how does someone know if they're depressed?
Well, that's a good question. That's part of the reason why I wrote my book, Crack the Depression Code. It's really short. It's about 46 pages. I give it away free. There's a test in the front of the book, and it really will help you figure out some of the sort of unseen symptoms of depression. One of them that most people don't know about is, body aches. It can make your body hurt in weird ways, kind of like if you were to go exercise, but you didn't go exercise. And so you'll have these like, odd body pains here and there. Appetite loss or appetite increase, sleeping more or sleeping less. Anger was a big one for me. Very quick mood swings from just kind of okay to, oh, I'm crying. I had crying spells for like 3 months, or so, like just intermittent, where I would just break out in tears because there was so much pressure that, it was up in my head that I wasn't dealing with. And it was just, because what we learn is to not show and to not deal with things, and we just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and we keep packing stuff down, and that's literally what you're doing. You're literally packing stuff down. And so pardon me one moment. Sorry, I'm a father too. So you're packing stuff down, and it's not going away. You're just pushing it. Eventually it starts leaking out. And so that's what was happening to me. I was having these emotional outbursts, and nobody around me cared, because I was in the Navy, and that's kind of a reality in some jobs. And if that's you, then I'm sorry. I dearly hope that you get into a place where people do the right thing, which is care about you and try to figure out what's going on. But so that's kind of some of the ways is these the emotional swings, and sleeping more or less. And one of the things I talk about in the book is this idea of anchors, and I call them anchors because they are I have a worksheet, the I Will Why worksheet, where I talk about having 3 different things that you always do that are sort of your keys that you reliably are going to do. So like for me, I'm going to play drums, I'm going to work out, and I'm going to exercise. Like those are my 3. And when I start seeing those start slipping and I'm not exercising, and I exercise every day starting at like 4:30 in the morning. So when I start seeing, my patterns shift, then I can start noticing, okay, because depression is cyclical. And so as it, shifts, you kind of have to know where you are in the cycle.
Interesting. What do you feel, to kind of take it back a little bit, you talked about how we pack things on and we're kind of meant to kind of hold it in. And you talked about being in the Navy. Do you feel that is more specific towards your profession, or do you feel that men in general have to do that because of society, or do you think overall humans just tend to do that?
Well, I think men, that's one of the main reasons why I have my podcast, Radically Unstuck, is to basically get the fact that depression is real. Depression is a real thing. And if you're dealing with it, then do something about it. And one of the main reasons why is because men in particular, just as men, we're like, we're the strong ones, right? We're the ones that don't ever give up. We're the ones that, we're always the ones that are supposed to solve things. And so for men, there's this huge stigma around getting help in general, just generally going to doctors. Men go to doctors less than women. It's just like it's a cultural reality. And when it comes to depression, it's the same thing. Men will struggle through with it. And in a lot of instances, depression will get them because, if you don't take it seriously, it's just like any other illnesses. If you don't take it seriously, it gets worse.
Right.
And the bad thing about depression is that even though it may not be like you're not like stuck in bed, sleeping all the time, which is sort of the extreme. I mean, there's some people that literally can't get up off the floor because they're dealing with, this intense depression. But even before you get to those points, depression affects your thinking, your, emotions, your perception, how you see your world, the likelihood of your circumstances getting better if you're, especially if you're an entrepreneur. So, right. It's easy to just push past it and think that, oh, I'm winning against it, but you're really not, because it has its effect. If you're dealing with what I call the inner garden, and it's your inner garden is essentially full of thorns. In other words, you have a lot of hate speech and criticism, self-criticism and negativity up there in the inner garden, so to speak. Then that colors the perception, that colors how you see the world. So, that's one of the reasons why, I'm on here, why I do the Radically Unstuck podcast, why I wrote the book, because for men in particular, and talking about the Navy in general, the Navy is full of people who hate their jobs. They hate their life, and they're stuck.
Do you think it's just the Navy? I mean, obviously you can't speak for all branches, but do you think it's military in general? Do you feel it's just the Navy? What is the thought process for that?
Oh, I think that here's the thing about the Navy and the military in general. Well, let's talk about just the Navy and the Army, right? Because those are two really easy to get into. The Marines, you kind of have to be a cut above. The Air Force, you got to be a cut above, and you have to be super smart because they don't care. They only take who they want to take.
Right.
So the Army and the Navy both are sort of easy outs. So if somebody has been dealing with, like I talked about on another podcast about how if somebody is, dealing with a really bad childhood and they want out, then one of the easy ways is just to join the Army.
Right.
So you have people who are already in a compromised position because of their life. They've dealt with, fathers that abused them. They, mentally or physically, whatever it is, their mothers didn't like them. They didn't have this support network of their adult, people. And so they have grown up and they're already in a compromised position. And then they go into the Army or the Navy, where unfortunately the truth is that it's a big organization and they really can't care. In a lot of instances, they really can't care about your problems.
Right.
Until you like have a depressive event or, and then sometimes even not then, because you are, I have seen it. I have seen where people have been like, hey, I'm depressed. I'm dealing with depression. And they basically said, because we need you. We need you to buck up. We need you to, we need you to do the thing that you're doing.
Right.
That's the reality. So I think as far as the military, it's just one, it's really, really stressful and you can't get out. You sign on the dotted line. You're in for 4 years. You're in for 2. You're on that ship, which, sucks a lot of times. And, so you can't get out. You're essentially in prison.
Yeah, I mean, it is a prison with benefits. But, I mean, just to clarify, we respect all the military. Brian was in the military. He was in the Navy. He has firsthand experience. He's just not going off the cusp and saying that it's all bad. We give huge praise to our military, and we definitely respect them. So I just want to put that out there. This is just Brian's firsthand experience with the military. And just to kind of go off what Brendan, one of our comments here, says, a lot of the military love their job and proud of doing and serving. It has sculpture some of our greatest minds and leaders out there. Yeah, I totally agree, Brian, Brendan. The military has good and bad aspects to it. It just depends on, the environment that you are in. Obviously, like Brian said, it is a very high stress environment. And anytime that high stress levels are entered into the body, cortisol levels increase, testosterone levels increase, adrenaline levels increase. All these are toxic to the body because they are that flight or fight mode. And if you're constantly in fight or flight mode, your body starts breaking down. You start, not decompressing, but I would say, decompressing your whole body, and your mind starts shutting down, and you just go into a tunnel vision because all your other systems are being shut down because you are having this poison in your body. Testosterone is a poison. That's why men die sooner than women. But it is a very powerful drug and chemical in our bodies. So let me make this very clear. I am not. I'm not talking anything about the people that serve. I'm not denigrating what they do. None of that. I'm fully aware, having spent 20 years in the Navy, right,
from 1991 to 93. One, that back then in 93, that was like living in the 1860s compared to what it is now, as far as like the cleanliness, as far as like the food. I mean, you know, the food in the Navy now, it's funny because when I was in, people would be like talking about the food. I'm like, dude, I was in 91. In 91, this, like, you have no idea, right? So I've seen all of it. So don't think that I am knocking the Navy people or what they do or the job or any of it.
No, we don't think that at all. Yeah.
I've seen it all. I've seen, you know, from the beginning, not the beginning literally, but I've seen like really, you know, I'm talking in 1991, the living conditions, all the different things that happened back then, you wouldn't even recognize the Navy now. But so nobody is denigrating the Navy or the military. I'm speaking to the fact that it is an incredibly stressful job.
Right.
That it is stressful, not just the job itself, but it's like any big organization. You know, and the Navy is an easy thing to talk about because I have been in the Navy, you know, for 20 years, so I'm speaking about it. But any big organization has the same problem.
Right. I mean, just any job that creates a lot of stress on the body, and people that don't know how to handle stress, or don't see someone or talk about the problems or release that stress, overcome these issues, are going to, in some way or shape or form, develop some kind of breakdown or have some kind of, not disability, but something that is affecting them mentally. And that overloading of chemicals is not meant to be constant onto the body and the mind. It is essentially supposed to be like a fight or flight mode. It's supposed to be on and off, and then it's supposed to return back to normal. But when you're in these high stressful environments, and just bringing it back to entrepreneurship, a lot of people that are entrepreneurs are in high stress environments. They might not feel like they are, but they're grinding every single day. I see people on Facebook, I see people on Instagram, YouTube. These people, it's funny because it's a different kind of stress. It's a stress to provide content, it's a stress to make new content or level up or be louder or whatever, or spend money to look famous or whatever it is. It's a constant pressure on them. And people today don't know how to handle pressure and don't know how to handle things that come their way. A lot of people are too coddled today, I think, and are not able to just handle figuring out their own mental issues, or seeing someone and feeling confident enough. I think that's also another thing, being confident enough to be able to seek help. Because if people aren't seeking help, these things, like you said, are just going to continuously to manifest, constantly build on top of each other, and are going to break people down. And in entrepreneurship, I mean, for me, for example, I'm constantly on social media. There'll be, I don't know if I'm depressed or not. It could be, who knows? But for me, like there'll be a week where I'm just like, I don't want to do anything today. I don't want to work. I'm tired of social media. I'm tired of the people on it. I'm tired of, you know, these gurus who are just scamming people. So I take a break. I literally just don't go on for a week or so, and I feel much better. I'll do something else. I work out, because obviously working out increases not melatonin, but
dopamine.
Dopamine, thank you, to feel good and look good. And I have plenty of confidence, so I'm not worried about that. So I think for me, I think like Elon Musk has, I don't know if it's a disorder, but it's something manic, and it's a mix. It's not like bipolarism where you have these huge swings from up to down, but you do go up into a manic state where you're constantly go, creative, wanting to change the world. And then there'll be these not low times, but just under normal, where you're just like, I don't really care to do anything. I just want to relax. I don't want to work today or this week. I don't want to talk to anyone. I just want time to myself. And like for me, I'm a very introverted person. Like I stay at home all the time. Even though I play a good extrovert on TV, I don't like people. I don't like, I wouldn't say I don't like people. I love people. online, I don't like to be put in situations out in the real world where I don't want to do something that I don't want to do. Like, I can shut off my internet friends at any time. But if I'm out and someone wants to go to a bar or go party, like, that's not me, and I'm going to be uncomfortable in that situation. And then I feel bad if I say, oh, I don't want to join you. And then and then it turns into this weird conversation. And so for me, I just like my internet friends better. So that's why I don't want to say I don't like people, but I like my internet friends, and I have a lot more internet friends than I would say real friends, like in real life friends. I think my two in real life friends, 3 in real life friends, because he might be watching, would be my buddy York, who I've known forever, my dog, and my wife. And those are like the 3 people that I probably talk to on a pretty consistent basis. Obviously, there are other people that I want to meet and meet up with. Obviously, like Brian, Trey, I've already met, Chris, Brendan, Cole is up and coming. It seems like he's putting forth the effort to actually talk a lot more. But these people I don't mind hanging out with and getting to know and meeting. But like you said, and we said in the very beginning of this, it is a lonely world. I mean, if you don't know how to be comfortable in your own skin, then you're going to have a hard time being an entrepreneur, especially online on social media, because people want to see who you are as a person. They want to see that you're a real person, and they want to know that you're like actually like flawed in some way. People like people that are like them. And so like I am constantly at my house. My wife works downstairs. I never see her besides when she comes home, and I don't leave the house. So it is a lonely world. And that's why I'm so lucky to have friends like you online, and Cole and Trey and Brendan and Delphine, all these people, Chris, all these people there's a million other people. And I apologize if I didn't say your name. You do mean you're an important person to me, especially all my money friends. Huge supporters of you guys. So, but yeah, let's take it back to the whole entrepreneur lifestyle and why you think it is a way to die, or how you could die from being an entrepreneur.
Well, I think one of the things we talked about was, what they call the grind,
right,
and glorifying. Actually, in one of my podcasts, we talked about how, Gary V, unfortunately, is a problem if you let it be, because
I was actually thinking about this today. I was actually thinking about that yesterday.
Yeah. So, I mean, the fact that, because he's always like, what are you doing with your life? Like, get out there and do it. And so everybody's like, yes, I'm going to do the Gary V thing. And people forget that Gary V did, like he was completely unknown. He was nothing for 10 years.
Right.
He started with like a wine bottle and YouTube.
Right.
And people forget that. People are always trying to look for the magic carpet. And, and they want to be on this magic carpet because they've got the stress, they've got all this different stuff. And so they don't have patience, right? Patience, is something that a lot of us feel like, well, I can't have any, I don't have any time for patience. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. That's the worst way you can do it. Nobody succeeds with that, right? There's, because patience is the cornerstone of learning. If you don't have patience, like I'm a drummer, right? If I actually play like 5 instruments, right? But currently I play drums primarily. And if you're trying to learn a beat and you're just going to rush through it, and that sounds right. Well, and then if you're a drummer or any other instrument, any other musician, you're rushing through it and say, oh yeah, I got it because it sounds right. No, you have to be patient. My drum teacher used to say, play it stupid slow. Like, so to the point where it doesn't even sound like music. It doesn't even sound like the beat anymore, because you got to get it right on the one. You got to get it right on the and. Is it on the E? Is it on the This all music speak. I don't know if you guys are musicians, but anyway. So you have to be patient with yourself. That is the key. If you don't have any patience, then all this stress, all this stuff, no learning happens, and you just keep pushing. And then you fall victim to the thing that will for sure take you out, literally, figuratively, or waste your money, which is shiny object syndrome.
Yep.
And you probably talk about the shiny object syndrome because you've probably seen it once or twice.
Yeah, I have seen it quite a bit. I actually see it more online with other people than myself. I typically just, for me, I focus on one thing at a time. I grow it to where it's passive enough where I can reinvest the money to have someone grow my business for me, and then I move on to the next. So I don't really fall into, I really don't fall into the shiny object syndrome. I think more I get bored of things really easily. So I wouldn't say it's like, for instance, we have our Facebook tool that's doing really, really, really well. And now we're launching an Instagram tool. So, it is what it is, but I just get bored, and I like having multiple streams of income. So like, for instance, we have our real estate, we have our 401ks and all that. Not mine, but my wife's. Have a investment account. We have software. We have coaching. I'm starting to do YouTube and podcasts like this one to monetize. So all these things add up. But to kind of go back to the Gary Vee thing, and it's funny in how, if you look at his whole message is be happy and be nice to other people. It's like the simplest message that you could ever have. And like, that's as simple as you can make it. And who's going to argue with be a nice person and be happy? No one is going to. Only the people that are not happy are typically the people that are shitting on him. And so, but yeah, just like you were saying, like, it took him 10 years to grow into this multi-million-dollar business. And it's funny because I see all these people, these gurus, and all this stuff online. Is they talk about how you can, it's so easy, anyone can make money, and blah blah blah. And I did it overnight, but they might have, but it took them maybe 5 or 10 years to get to that point where they made $1 million overnight, or $1,000 in a day, or whatever. Like, for me, like, when I was a personal trainer, it's funny because when I first started dating my girlfriend at the time, now wife, she would always be like, do you even work? Like, I don't even know if I want to be with you because, like, you have like 3 hours a day. And from there, like, it kind of put a fire in me. And I ended up, it took me, I think, like maybe 4 years before I had a full-time schedule of clients. And I ended up just shifting my marketing, just a small shift. And that helped me grow my business, my fitness business, into a very well-producing business that allowed me to take that money and invest in real estate. And I now have 10 rental units. Do they cash flow great? Yeah, they cash flow great. Am I making $1 million a year? No, I'm not making $1 million a year. Will I make $1 million in 30 years when all of them are paid off and I now have 100 units? Of course, but it took me 30 years or 10 years or whatever that is to do that. For the last 5 years, we've been investing in real estate, and we have 10 units. And I wanted to do that in 10 years. I was going to buy one a year. But it's funny because everyone wants a quick fix. But if you realize how money works in anything, it becomes a snowball effect. So once you put in that time, you start growing it, and you have patience with it, then you become an overnight success because now your money is making money and snowballing itself, and you're able to say, oh, here's $100,000 day, like I've been able to do with real estate. And it took me 9 years to do that. And a lot of people just don't have patience. They, like you said, and that patience is going to again manifest into pushing things down, hoping things work better, being stressed about money, being stressed about things not working, and again is going to cause all these other things. Not only that, but just environmental stress. If people aren't in a good environment, like you were saying with kids growing up, how we eat, people not taking care of their bodies, it's just going to put more internal stress on the body. All these stressors add up and put people into a place of depression. And not only that, but everyone is expecting instant gratification and they're not getting it. So then they wonder, like, what's wrong with me? Or they're not getting some kind of, I guess, not value, but recognition. No, recognition, I would say, on social media. So they're like, oh, people don't like me. And then they start feeling, and they start having people dictate how they should feel. And then so now people are, they're thinking, sorry, let me redo that. They're having people dictate how they feel about themselves, which is a horrible way to live your life. And so now you have like the snowball effect of stress on the body, which then is causing, these huge swings in mood, because now your chemical imbalances are all over the place, and you're just creating this illness of depression. And I think that it's not one thing; it's the one last thing that breaks the camel's back, and then keeps snowballing into depression. Would you say that would be kind of a good overview of how the snowballing of stress and depression kind of works?
Yeah, because depression, I mean, there's a lot of different types of depression, right? But it really starts with, because there's also hereditary depression, right? Like,
I don't know what that is. Tell me about it.
But so depression really happens when the body can't cope. Whether it's your cat died and your coping mechanism, doesn't work as well. You love the cat, whatever, then, you might suffer depression. And just to help everybody out, depression is a real illness that has real symptoms, and it typically lasts, all of these symptoms, they usually last at least 2 weeks.
Wow.
So when you are kicking along, everything's good, the sun's shining, and life kicks you in the nuts, and
or the veg.
Yeah, then you're feeling bad for 2 days. Please, for the love of God, don't say, "Oh, I'm feeling depressed. I'm depressed," because that blurs the line between sadness and whatever in the heck else you're feeling and depression. The truth of the stigma, and that's one of the reasons why I breathe and do my podcast and do these podcasts, and why I speak, why I wrote the book, is to make a sharp line between sadness and depression. Just because you deal with something for 3 days doesn't mean it's depression. Depression is real. It would be like saying, "Oh, I feel cancerous." "Oh, I have cancer." Because cancer and depression are both illnesses. They are not sadness.
Right.
So sharp line between, depression and sadness. Different, not the same. You don't fall into depression and come out a day later. If you're dealing with depression, you're dealing with depression.
Right.
Okay? So you can be sad, you can be in grief. Grief is, and here's the other thing. Just because take the cat again, right? The cat died. You hated that cat, always peeing on your rug. Not going to have depression, right? Because you didn't care about the cat.
Right.
But cat dies, you feel sadness. Oh my gosh. Doesn't mean you're going to be depressed. It's not an if-then statement. Your great Aunt Nellie could die and you still won't be depressed. It's not like it's automatic. Somebody dies, you're going to be depressed. It's not like that. There is no if-then statement. There are plenty of people who go through horrible situations, don't ever deal with depression.
So do you think that sadness can manifest into depression now?
Oh, yeah, because if you have this overriding sadness, this overriding grief because great Aunt Nellie died and you really like great Aunt Nellie, then if your coping mechanisms, if your support network is such that, it's not enough, then something can trigger in your brain and you can, start suffering depression. But it's not an if-then statement. It's not like just because somebody dies or just because the cat dies, you're going to be depressed. It's not, to a great extent, we still don't really know exactly what causes depression. We have a good idea. We have, like if somebody dies, if you can see postpartum depression where a woman, has a baby and, all these different things come together and she becomes, radically depressed and all of these ways that can happen. But, at its core, depression is, a truth that can happen in certain circumstances. And it's also, as I said, it can be hereditary. It can be situational. Once you get out of the situation, your depression may go away.
Is it so? You said they don't know anything. They don't know anything. They have a good idea of what it is. Is it a chemical imbalance, or is it like a test I can take? Not from a psychologist, but like a blood test, or how do they qualify someone from being depressed versus just being sad?
Well, that's the thing. In mainstream psychology and mainstream, clinical understanding of depression, they have this thing called the DSMR. I'm not going to tell you, it's probably like this DSMR 7 now. Every so often, all these psychologists get together and say, as far as bipolar disorder, somebody has to have 8 symptoms or 6 symptoms or 5 symptoms to be, yep, you're bipolar disorder, take this drug, off you go. So the DSMR is like a Bible, and they give you all these tests and they say, well, let's see, this blah, 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 blah. You're depressed. You've got, this, you've got that. So there, that's that's the way they do it. One of the ways they can tell is, if somebody comes in and they're like, well, for the last 2 weeks, I've been hopeless. I've been thinking about suicide. And then they start talking to them and they find out that their great Aunt Nellie died. Then, you're dealing with depression. They don't necessarily have to give you a test because they, it's situational. They kind of understand. Also, if there was like my case, parental, physical, and mental abuse, pretty much my whole life, give or take some good spots, then, without really taking a test, they can be like, well, you're probably dealing with depression based on these other things. But clinically, they do this DSMR 3 or 7, whatever the number is, a little guidebook they use, and they say, okay, you're depressed.
What do you recommend people that are depressed to be on medication, to seek therapy? No, so no medication. Okay.
No, medication is, look, there are so many different other options than mainstream depression therapy. Like, I'm not saying don't go to counseling. I'm saying resist at all costs being on antidepressants, especially lithium. Lithium, I was on Zoloft. If at all possible, don't do antidepressant drugs. And here's the other thing. If you do take antidepressant drugs, don't expect it to fix you, because it's not a magic bullet. It's not a magic pill. It's not a magic carpet. It'll help.
Right.
So here's what antidepressants, I'm going to speak from my experience, right? So you have the real self and the ideal self, right?
Right.
And what can happen, what I call the mental gap, right? And what can happen is those two sides can get fused. I did a horrible job explaining that.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. So anyway, what can happen is the what you want or the real self, the ideal self, there's like a gap, right? And in between, it allows you to sort of, see what's going on. And what antidepressants do is they make it easier to see the depression. They make it easier to see that essentially that you're dealing with depression. It makes it easier to see the depressive thoughts. And it also kind of mellows you out a little bit. But at this cost, one, you have to take antidepressants the same dose, the same time. You can't vary. You can't really do any alcohol while you're while you're on antidepressants. So it requires a very strong life change. If you miss a day, for God's sakes, don't take 2 pills when you pick it back up. Or worse, I missed 3 days, take 3 pills, because this is some really strong stuff. Antidepressant medicine is working on your brain.
Right.
I don't recommend anybody, unless they absolutely have to, be on antidepressants. I use and have used for many years. When I was on antidepressants, I got off as soon as I could, because I hated the way I felt, and I would never recommend anybody do that. These days I use cognitive behavioral methods, meditation, what I call dropping anchor in really, crazy situations. But what I do is I watch my depression. Most people that deal with depression, they turn away from it. And I made it, it's one of the things I talk about in the book. I made it kind of a science experiment. I just decided I was going to watch it and learn its triggers, and then do my best to, take those triggers away. And we can talk about, some of that, how you can do that. I don't know if you want to go into
that. We'll get to that in a second, but I want to get back to the antidepressants real quick and kind of harp on, if you're just like anything, if you're putting something into your body is going to shut something else down to not make room. But for instance, like people that take steroids, right? When you take steroids, your testicles tend to shrink because they atrophy, because your body no longer needs to produce testosterone because it's getting it from an outside source. Similar to antidepressants, I'm guessing it loads you up with dopamine or some kind of other drug that is a chemical in the brain. And if your body is now getting that from an outside source, those chemicals are being shut down. And just like you said, if you happen to stop taking it, your body is going to drop very low because it's not making it naturally. That's why you have to, like you said, keep it on the same cycle, because half-lives and all that. But you have to keep it regulated, because it keeps your levels stable, versus if you don't have that, you're going to go from a very high point where you feel like you're talking about your ideal self, now to a very low point, and it makes these swings where they're very huge swings now. And then you go from a low point and then you double the dose. You're now in this manic state, and you never really regulate. And the human body is supposed to, it's meant to be regulated. It's meant to be normalized and very boring. It's supposed to be, our whole bodies are meant to create homeostasis. It's supposed to be just level. That's why you don't want these big swings, because they cause other issues. So I think that's a huge point to be made, that if you are taking drugs, it's going to affect you in one way or the other. Not only that, but I mean, if you look at the commercials, they say like, if you have depression, this could cause death and stroke and all these other things are way worse.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Symptoms, depression.
Right. And
no way.
It's just, it's very interesting. So do exactly, and Brian's going to go over some techniques right in a second, but definitely look at alternative means, look at exercise, look at natural ways to boost your dopamine levels, meditation, eating correctly, taking care of your body first, building confidence in yourself. All these things help increase dopamine levels naturally, and will help really stabilize yourself. So Brian has some great tips on anchoring yourself, and he's going to go into that right now.
All right. So first, I want to talk about if you are on depressives, if you're on antidepressants, whatever you do, don't just stop. You have to be weaned off, right? And that just means that if you're taking, like you tell your doctor, hey, I want to get off of these. First, you'll have to fight through that, because your doctor may not, really appreciate the fact that you're trying to get off the drugs for one reason or the other. I'm not going to go into that. But once you are getting off of it, you just kind of, slowly but surely stop taking as much. And then, a couple of weeks down the road or whatever, you're done. But here's the other thing. While you're on the drugs, you have to be prepared for them to work and then not work. And sometimes that not working, that can be, that's where we talk about where they can cause more depression, because there's nothing like having this amazing crutch, which essentially is what antidepressants are. They're meant to be a crutch, but crutches don't help you walk again. Crutches help you learn to walk again.
Right. They support you for a short amount of time.
And that's what antidepressants, should be used for. I'm not saying like if you're somebody, you got to have antidepressants for the rest of your life. I'm not speaking to you. I mean, if that's the reality, that's the reality. I'm saying that, in a perfect world, if you're somebody who had like, situational depression and you were on antidepressants and now you're wanting to get off of them, then they're a crutch, and you will get off the antidepressants when your coping mechanisms come back up to strength, so to speak. So whatever you do, if you're on antidepressants today, don't just stop taking them. That's really bad. So don't do that. So as far as like the different steps that you can use to start getting a handle on dealing with depression. So we were talking about triggers, right? And so one of the ways that you can sort of release the pressure of events, of things that people have said to you that have caused you to be dealing with depression, or things that your depression will use against you, right, is do what I call what you're going to do is so here's the thing. Here's a quick thing. So memory is not like a VHS recording tape. It's not like
for those of our listeners who might not know what a VHS tape is. Can you go ahead? I'm just kidding. It's an old videotape. We don't use those anymore. I don't even think we use DVDs or CDs anymore, or even records, except for collectors. But it's, I just wanted to poke fun right there.
So it's not a CD. What I'm saying is it's not a recording.
Right.
Just because you see something, feel something, hear something, your memory is not forever. Right. Like we trick ourselves. We think that our memories are just like steel traps.
Oh, no,
once it's in here, it's always there. No, the way the memory works is that it's more like, if you think about a time when you were young and then you sort of stop thinking about it, that memory is re-encoded. Every time you think about a memory, it's re-encoded. It's brought up, it's played like a movie, and then depending upon what you're thinking about, how you're thinking about it, where you are, all of these different things, when it gets re-encoded, it's a new event. It literally gets re-encoded. It gets restored. So what that means is that you can take memories and, like, say your painful one. Like for me, for some reason, this is weird, but like part of I only remember like, my worst part of my childhood from 10 to 14. I only remember like 6 or 7, maybe 8 scenes from that. And that's a good thing because it was bad. But one of the ones that I remember really well is my stepfather kicked me down the hallway, literally kicked me down the hallway. And for some reason that always really affected me. And so I used this technique I'm going to tell you about to totally, remove the pain from that. And here's what you do. And I recommend if you have like really serious pain, like from some really, really bad situation that, you're dealing with, that you don't start with that one, that you start with like extraneous memories and get used to, using this concept and then sort of creep towards the biggies, right? So here's what you do. So you sit real quiet and you bring up your memory and you close your eyes and you bring up your memory and you play it through and you watch it and you relive all of the emotions and the sounds and all that stuff. And you're playing that memory. And then once you get comfortable with that memory, then drop the sound mentally, just like, oh, quiet. And then raise up the sound until it's so loud. You're at a carnival and now the music is loud and you're imagining this, right? And then drop it back to normal. And then if it was sunny, make it dark. And by fiddling with these memories, you are literally re-encoding them. And as you do that with, different memories, then if there's pain associated with them, like in my case, when my dad kicked me down my hallway, if there's pain associated, it leaches away. It just goes away because the pain isn't real. It happened, for me, it happened almost 40 some years ago. The pain's long gone. The only pain is up here. Your brain's still holding on to it. But all you have to do is get your brain to remember it differently.
That's awesome. I mean, that if you think about it, that's just how learning is, right? Like if you take, like a skill and you're trying to learn it, the more you can immerse yourself in that skill, the more you can replay it. I mean, that's why visualization is so important for high, I guess, what is the word I'm looking for? People that are very highly, not stressed, but not energized, but performers, high performers, they visualize. And that's exactly this kind of the strategy that you are using is you're manipulating the memory to cause another effect. And you see this in artists and sports people. Like I would literally, when I played football or in rugby, I would literally just shut my eyes. I would imagine myself scoring touchdowns or tries or putting moves on people and doing all these things so that when the time came, I was kind of already had those memories stored into my subconscious. And just like your technique, you're visualizing what the previous memory was, you're re-encoding it like you said, you're manifesting a kind of a new memory in a sense, and you're molding it into something that the body and the mind can deal with. And I think that is amazing.
Yeah, so that's one thing, right? That's really powerful. And the thing is one, it requires you to have started with, I will not let depression, anxiety, panic attacks, whatever it is, beat me. That is the key. The key is to have a why that is like I'm talking the Rock of Gibraltar. If you don't know what the Rock of Gibraltar is, it's this huge rock and it's not ever going to move, right? It's the size of a skyscraper. That's the kind of why that you need to start with. So once you have your why, which is I will not let whatever it is beat me, if we're talking about depression, then that's the place that you're going to start. Because when you talk about beating depression, when you're talking about coming out of depression, and I'm not trivializing the realities of depression. I am under no illusions of the truth of depression. I'm saying it's possible, not that it's easy.
Right.
But when you decide that you're going to move out of that state, you're going to pull yourself out, then strong why, hopefully a why that is service related. In my case, it was when I came out of my 7 months of treatment, I that day made my why helping people with depression.
It's great.
I told everybody I dealt with depression. I told everybody I was like the depression dude in my office, quote unquote. Not an office. I was on a boat, but you know, on my ship, I was like the depression guy. I told everybody.
And that's, I mean, that's just putting your message out there, right? Like manifesting what you want and being able to, and it goes again with visualizing and putting things out there and allowing you to manifest your destiny in a sense. I have a question though, and I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, but instead of focusing on the negative of saying, I'm going to beat depression and constantly having that in your body, and in your mind, would it be better to say something to the extent of I'm happy, or a positive note that is focused on more of the positive aspects than focusing on the negative? Because I don't know if this is true or not. I'm not a doctor or anything, but I hear that our minds don't actually take in the negatives, like the not and the no and blah, blah, blah. So when the mind replays it back, it says, so I will not have depression. It is I have depression. And so by switching the kind of the context of what your the focus is on, it kind of pulls you away from that state of being. I don't know if that's true. I mean, that's just my thoughts, and that's kind of how I've always lived my life. I always try and spin things into a positive light, and it seems to be working for me. But how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, there's definitely evidence that says that, you know, that positivity, you know, works. And
you can say I'm totally wrong. I don't care. Don't feel like you're gonna offend me.
So for me, what has worked is just always being aware. So I worry of saying, well, I'm happy, because that's not like, you know, just because you're happy doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, your depression is going to shrink.
Right.
And so I always want to draw the line between, because just because you have cancer, like if you have cancer and you're happy, it's not really gonna, you know what I'm saying? Because just being happy isn't enough. Like, you know, when you're talking about dealing with depression, because the truth is the people that are like dealing with like serious depression, like, you know, it's active, it's a, you know, 75% of their life is dealing with depression, is fighting through these impulses and these feelings every day. Like that's what I'm talking about. You know, people who are in that situation, well, they really want to be happy, but they, you know, they can't, you know, they can't literally, they can't feel it.
So my philosophy, and again, I'm not a doctor. This is just my own
Me either.
theory.
Not a doctor.
So I believe everything is in a scale of life, right? Like you have a scale, and if you're having more shitty things happen to you, let's go this way, then you're going to be in a depressed state and not happy. And if you are having better things happen to you, you know, obviously you can be in a more happier state. Obviously, there's chemical imbalances and stuff like that. But I mean, if you're, for me, like if I'm constantly doing things that are positive and helping others and putting my thoughts that, oh, I did this good thing and I helped this person and I'm happy and blah, 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 like they all add up. And the more I'm brainwashing myself in a sense to constantly think that I'm happy and that I have these dopamine levels that are constantly being fed, instead of you know, doing these great things and then saying I'm depressed or I'm not depressed. I think that kind of takes it a step back, because then you think about that and then that triggers thoughts when just thinking about depression, which then brings up other memories and might be a great, I guess, technique to then use the anchoring technique when those negative thoughts come. But I try and not put any negativity in my thoughts, even if it's something like depression. I mean, if I say, let's just say, for instance, I skin my knee, right? and I'm bleeding. I could be like, oh man, this really hurts. Like, oh, this sucks. Like, oh, like I'm bleeding everywhere. You know, I'm gonna get a scar. Like that is a possibility. Or I could be like, oh, that sucks. Let me just put a Band-Aid on it, and I'll just keep doing on things with life. And I think that's kind of, I don't know if it's true or not, but I think that's how I've lived my life. And even though something bad might happen, I typically just turn it around into a positive event. And I think that's just me brainwashing myself. And but I don't know if that would work for everyone. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I just know that if you Google, you know, the things not to tell a depressed person,
To be happy.
One of them will be, you know,
just be happy.
Be happy.
Right.
You know, and I talk about this a lot on the podcast about how, you know, there is this idea that people that are, you know, rich beyond wildest belief don't deal with depression, you know, because why would they be depressed?
Right.
And the reason why is because depression isn't rational. It's not a rational response to life. There's no rationality to depression. Depression is is a reality, and it takes more than being happy. It takes, you know, like I have a friend,
challenges, purpose.
Tim, the sack man, right? And what he has found, and what I encourage people to do, essentially, is there are about 3 or 4 different things that can help you if you're dealing with depression. 1, have a huge why. 2, have a strong pattern, a strong rhythm, a strong, construction to your life, right? Like I eat at this time. I exercise. I practice my affirmations. Affirmations are big ones. Have affirmations, but not somebody else's affirmations. Your affirmations, deeply meaningful affirmations. Physical activity. In the case of the sack man, in his case, it's punching a bag. In my case, I exercise, twice a day, and those are the things that I would recommend. Get outside.
See, I have a kind of a issue with how people define happy, though, because our whole lives are on this pursuit of happiness, and it's not until we have these things in place that we do actually find happiness. Like you were saying, having that purpose. Like if you don't have a purpose, most people aren't going to be happy. They're going to be spinning the wheels. They're going to fall depressed. Then this goes back to what you were talking about with billionaires and millionaires who are depressed. These people that make all this money online. A lot of them, and Gary Vee talks about this, and a lot of high performers fall into this category too, is because they don't have their purpose. They are spinning their wheels. They don't feel challenged. Like for instance, when I was training, at the end of it, I was exchanging time for money, and I was not happy training anymore. I dreaded going to the gym and making $100 an hour because I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to keep doing what I was doing. I wasn't feeling satisfied with what I was doing. I wasn't feeling challenged anymore. I felt like it was really not really. These people were coming to me for an hour a day, and then the other 23 hours of the life, no matter what I told them or changed, like some of them wouldn't do what I would say to do. And so I had really no control over that. So all these things, by the end of it, I was just like, well, like I was I wouldn't say I was depressed. I was probably, I was not happy with my situation. If I continued, I'm sure that I would, if I continued and then I was still training, living in California, and didn't invest in real estate, and then had this COVID thing happen, I would think I would be in a very depressed state right now because one, I was living in the most expensive areas of town. I was doing something that I was not passionate about anymore, or my why, and I wasn't feeling challenged. And then my business shut off because of COVID. All these things start adding up. I could see it being in a depressed state because one thing snowballs into the next. And I think that a lot of people, they think that happiness is just this one thing that is, it's not. It's an ongoing push to being happy and changing your life situations, and having all these areas of your life filled, and not just like this on and off switch of happiness. It's having, feeling secure with who you are as a person, and your current situation. It's having someone there who supports you and that you support them. It's being financially secure with your current situation and ongoing situations. It's being positive about the future and what that looks like. A million other things that adds to that pile. There is, and you need to do all these things to create happiness. And once you start layering and molding and adding happiness on top of happiness, like you said at the very beginning of this, you become a happy person. You're not happy your whole life. Like, it's a pursuit of happiness. That's why it's called
it's like this.
Right. And the more you can have upticks in happiness and stay at that level, it's harder to come down from that level. So it's a spectrum thing. And I totally agree with you. You should never tell someone who is depressed to just be happy, because they don't even know what happiness is. How do you measure happiness? How do you put something? It's a feeling. It's an over-encompassing kind of aura of what happiness is, and you need all these different things to make up to kind of create happiness, and it's not just a one-time thing or emotion, I guess.
Yeah, I always talk about
state of being. That's what I was trying to say.
So the thing I always tell people, like, what depression feels like is being a dysfunctional sponge.
Tell me a little bit more about that. What does a dysfunctional sponge do?
So a dysfunctional sponge, because what's a sponge supposed to do?
Suck up water.
Right. But the thing is, with depression, it'd be literally is like, a sponge that turns into a bar of soap, because it no longer knows how to absorb. Nothing gets in. The only thing that gets in is the negative stuff. And the thing is everything, when you're dealing with depression, everything gets sucked in and turned into the negative stuff. So happy doesn't get in. And 9 times out of 10, like emotions don't get in. It's hard to care about anything. I remember when I was dealing with depression that, I would just get tired of hearing my own voice. I just wouldn't speak. I just wouldn't talk, because I'm like, like somebody would ask me, how I was feeling. And I was just like, you're just so tired, because you're always in a fight. It's all because you're literally, when you're dealing with depression, you're fighting. You're fighting the fact that your brain seems to be really interested in killing you.
And that's not funny, but just the way you said it was a little bit funny. So, but okay, I'm going to be the opposite of that. So, am I a dysfunctional sponge because I see everything in the good light and I try to make everything a positive, which I, again, did that to myself by programming myself to do that? Humans are very, like you said, we're very moldable. We're able to change our way of thinking. We're able to manipulate our thoughts and our memories and all these things. So do you feel that I'm a dysfunctional sponge in a sense because I'm able to do just the opposite of what you just said, where I see everything in the positive light?
I think that, everybody is capable one, I don't think you're dealing with depression. So, it certainly,
it's a big difference.
Our discussion on the realities of depression, it doesn't sound like it applies to you. So we can't, you may be somebody, I mean, because like Steve Jobs, they said he was warped reality, and he lived in this or created this distortion field for everybody that was around him. So I think that it's fully possible that people can get to where you are, where everything that's negative or things that are negative, they are able to see the positive and keep focused on positive. But it's really a lot harder to start with that when you're really dealing with debilitating depression, and even mild depression can be it'll be a challenge to be happy, be content.
I totally agree with you. It's totally opposite ends of the spectrum. You can't see kind of the mountaintop until you get there, and then obviously there's more mountain ridges, and it just continuously grows, right?
Right.
But it's baby steps, right? It's taking one step at a time. It's taking your anchors. It's reading your book. It's learning these coping mechanisms that allow you to handle each day and better yourself and better your mental happiness. I can't think of the word right now, but mental just thought process, and focusing on just taking one day at a time, one step at a time, and overcoming each of these objections about yourself, building confidence, and focusing on helping others, finding your purpose, creating challenges in your life, and doing all these things that ultimately will help curve curve depression in some way or form. I don't know if it's, and I can't, they kind of, no, that's not really what I was trying to say, but is it kind of like alcoholism, where people say that you're constantly recovering? Is that kind of like depression too? Are you constantly recovering depressionism, if that's the word?
So, like in my case, I, have shrunk it down to where it's this tiny, tiny little nothing in my head. And I've done that through a couple of different ways. One of the things is to realize that your thoughts aren't your own. That, you can have, like in the book, I talk about how your brain is essentially, it just kicks out thoughts. Like 24 hours a day, it's just kicking out thoughts. I'm talking about the automatic brain, not the thinking brain. The thinking brain is, I want to, you tell it, I want to know what 2 + 2 is. It says 4. Right. But the automatic brain, it just kicking out thoughts constantly. And so, I talk about watching versus being, and this idea of being able to step back and watch your thoughts. And then once you start stepping back and watching your thoughts, like if I could watch your thoughts, I'm guessing I would see a lot of daisies, a lot of sunshine and all that type of stuff. But if somebody who's dealing with depression, when they step back, they're going to see a lot of thorns and and gnarled, brown branches wrapped around, so more like a more nightmarish type stuff. So so that's just one thing I want people to know, is that your thoughts are not yours. They you don't have to claim them. Like, you literally can say, well, just because you have the thought is not you. You are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are just thoughts. And you can start claiming your thoughts, and you can also not claim your thoughts. The thought that says that you're a horrible person, you don't have to claim that one, because even if it's true, even if you have been a horrible person up until yesterday or 20 seconds ago, you can make the decision to not be a horrible person, to do the things that you innately know would move you closer to being a good person, right?
Yeah, and that's essentially creating your own reality and using perception, right? I know there are a few gurus I pointed out that are horrible people, but they probably don't think they are. And that's just a matter of perception and how we're able to create our own reality, and how our perception is 100% different than your perception and how you see the world. And it's totally different than how I see the world. So I think that is a great thing that you just said right there, because you don't have to claim your thoughts. You can literally just brainwash yourself and be able to do and create great things. So yeah, where just as we wrap this up, Brian, where can people find this book of yours? Where can they see your podcast? Where can they find out more about you? And if someone is looking to help and be radically unstuck with their lives, where can they find out more about you?
I appreciate you having me on, and if you want to find out more about the podcast, you can go to ratethispodcast.com/unstuck, and you can rate it, but more importantly, it'll when you go to that link, it'll open up a like if you're using Apple, then it'll show you an Apple link, and if you're Android, it'll show you Android links.
Oh, I knew that.
So ratethispodcast.com/unstuck. I give my book away for free. You just have to go to hopefully you put the links up, but basically you need to go to radicallyunstuck.com/book, and that will take you to the link where you can download the book for free. You can find me on Facebook, Radically Unstuck, or Brian T. Forsyth. You can find me there. You can find my Instagram. I'm happy to give my book away for free. You can also go to Amazon.com and pay $10 for it. Your choice, whichever. But yeah, you can. That's how you can find me. Just go to your pretty much any of the major social profiles and type in Radically Unstuck, and you will find me. So,
perfect.
And definitely, I'm happy to help. So just reach out.
And Brian has probably the best last name possible. Forsyth is just sounds like an amazing last name. But for those who are looking for Brian, it is not spelled traditional. So it's Bryan. Forsyth is spelled Forsythe. That's again Bryan. Forsyth. Forsythe. And you can check them out at Radically Unstuck Podcast. You can go rate my podcast.com/unstuck, and all sorts of ways to connect with Brian. Brian's an amazing guy. You guys should definitely check him out. And again, Brian, thank you so much for jumping on this show with me today. I definitely appreciate your time, and I always love your input. So,
hey man, I appreciate it, Brandon. You're awesome. Look, y'all, I've known Brandon for a minute, and he has helped me a lot. He helps a lot of people. He's a good dude. Trust me. And so highly recommended. Thanks, Brandon. I appreciate you having me on, man.
I appreciate the kind words, and I will be talking to you soon, bud.
All right. Peace, y'all.